Welcome to Tattooed Freaks in Business Suits, recorded live in the kitchen of the Personal Touch Career Services in Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Donna Shannon. As a professional career coach, I help people navigate the hiring maze to get to the jobs they really love. In addition to working with job seekers one-on-one, I do have a book available. You can find Get a Job Without Going Crazy on Amazon. And of course, my guest today is Peter Van Ryder, and we're going to be talking about making your passion your career. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Donna. Thank you so much for having me today.
Cool. I'll come back to you in just one moment.
Okay.
For those of you who are new to our show, our purpose is to explore and redefine the world of work, especially as Gen X, millennials, and those to come after seek positions of leadership that still allow them to be themselves. So every show we have a topic related to business or job searching. And of course, we're going to talk about tattoos. Our sponsor is the Personal Touch Career Services, Denver's top-rated career coaching service. We focus on the practical tools for your job search, including resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job search coaching, and ongoing classes. So check out our ridiculously long website, personaltouchcareerservices.com. Once again, that's personaltouchcareerservices.com, or you can just Google it. So hi, Peter.
Hi, Donna. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a lovely day in Denver, but you're actually out in Dallas, right?
I am, and it's not so lovely here today. If you hear rumblings in the background, it's because we've got thunderstorm warnings all throughout today.
Oh, well, that sounds exciting.
Oh, it's a great day to spend inside and record a podcast, I tell you that much.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, Peter, you and I have known each other for years, but the rest of the audience doesn't know who you are. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I was born in Fort Worth, traveling a lot all throughout my childhood. We never really lived in one place for more than 5 years until I was an adult living in Houston. I lived in Switzerland as a child, Southern California. I've been on the East Coast, here in Central and Texas. And when I was younger, that really bothered me that every couple of years I had to make new friends. It was tough as a young child, but as an adult, I'm really grateful for it. I think it makes me the professional I am today, being able to be adaptable, learn new cultures, and just getting to become friends with new people. So a lot of travel throughout my storied life, and I call Dallas, Texas home. Dallas has been a great city to me, and there is just a ton of money coming in here now.
Right. Which is important for what you do professionally, because you are an estate manager, correct?
Yes, indeed.
And
love every second of it.
Right. So for any of our audience members who don't know, estate managers are the ones who take care of multi-million-dollar private estates. It's kind of an interesting niche. So, of course, Peter wants to be where the wealth is, because that's where the high net worth are.
Absolutely. That's, and most people actually out there say, well, all the money is on the East Coast or the West Coast. And they're really turning a blind eye to the amount of wealth and the number of businesses that are coming into Dallas and North Texas these days. We have companies like Liberty Mutual, Allstate, Toyota's new world headquarters is only a couple miles north of where we live. So it's really profound, and it's a wonderful untapped market at that.
Right. And interesting enough, I was trying to remember where you and I originally met. I think it was at a DEMA conference, and DEMA is the Domestic Estate Management Association. So we've known each other quite a few years now.
Yeah, I want to say it was at the very first one, or the very first conference. What was that? That was in LA in 2014, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It may have even been sooner than that. But anyway.
It has been quite amount of time. Maybe we shouldn't discuss dates. We might just prove our ancientness.
Yeah, it's okay. We're Gen X.
We
We're relevant.
That's
Nobody else believes it, but we do.
it.
All right. So anyways, one of the reasons why I want to bring you on my show is, like myself, you believe in doing what you love for your career, just really living that passion. Um, and I think one of the things that can help define knowing that you're on the right path is, like, I'm sure you probably get this where you're just going about your normal day and all of a sudden a thought comes to you. It's all like, wow, everything I have done in my professional life is leading up to right this moment. Because I'm like using all my diverse skills, even though it didn't make sense earlier in my career. It's like now everything has come together in a head. Do you find that's the same for you?
I do. And I would even go maybe a step further with that and saying that everything in my entire life has brought me to this career that to be honest with you, before I even started in the industry, that I never even knew existed.
Mm-hmm.
But all the traveling, all the, the international travels, my father had a lot of very powerful connections when we were kids with Latin American governments, and we would have generals and heads of state over to the house for dinner because of what my dad did. And it kind of taught me that without realizing it, it taught me one of the many things that I use today in the sense of etiquette and protocol, and that as I mentioned, that adaptability. So everything I've done my entire life without even realizing it has led me to this career that I do really have a passion for. I absolutely love it.
Right. Right. And then there's the flip side of things, that living your passion and doing the career that you love. Now, I used to be involved in broadcasting, and there's kind of like sometimes these dream careers, especially like around Denver, there's a lot of nonprofits, so people get involved with those. And sometimes we're told, hey, you're getting the privilege of living your dream job, so you should not expect as much salary. Like in broadcasting, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to pay you 5 to 10,000 below market, but we're going to give you t-shirts and concert tickets and CDs of brand new music and all the rest of that, and we're supposed to be happy. But there really is nowadays an emphasis of you don't have to starve just to do something that you love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think that it's not only in the broadcasting industry, as as the analogy that you used is even in the private service, we get, there are standards and expectations for our industry that help with a certain level of income, but there are also certain principals who don't subscribe to that, and they will still pay under market value and do that same thing. Oh, well, here's some cash bonus here. Oh, well, we don't need this furniture anymore, so you take it, or clothing. So there are the fringe benefits, but it really, I think it comes down to, if you're doing what you love, no, you don't need to starve for it. But at the same time, you don't need to you don't need to be getting rich off of what you're doing. And I think that's what this industry is doing what you really, really love. And we are lucky enough most of us do get a fair wage for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then again, there's always the, not to pick on caretakers, but there's, for example, Caretakers Gazette is a outlet that has many positions available. It's kind of like Indeed job board. There's all too many situations where they're like looking for a couple to come manage their ranch. The principals or the employers are only there a few weeks out of the year, and it's all like, come live your retirement at our ranch and take care of everything for free, but you get to live in this opulent residence.
Yeah, it's a lot like when before I started out my career in private service, I spent a couple years running a luxury country inn up in Connecticut,
Hmm.
and we would have people come and stay at the country inn and would say, "Oh, this is so wonderful. We want to be innkeepers when we retire, and this is so cool." It's like, this isn't something you retire with. It's a whole nother 60 to 80 hour a week job. It's,
Hmm.
it's not all fun and games. And to your point, we do have those principles in our industry. They're like, oh, well, you get to live on property and it's beautiful here. Well, yes, it is, but I'm also on 24/7.
Yeah.
So if you kind of take that salary and you work it down to the hourly rate, then you are below minimum wage.
Yeah. And I think like the old saying that we used to hear in like the 90s, and you still hear it kicked around these days too, but that if you do a work you love, you never work a day in your life. And I'm all like, oh no, that's not true, man. When I'm like cranking through resumes at 10 o'clock on Sunday, and it's 14 days in a row that I've been working, because as an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, I have expectations. I have to hit my deadlines and stuff like that. Yeah, it's work. It's definitely work.
Absolutely.
And you still
I
do
love what I
great.
do, but there have been many of, 12, 14-hour days. And, some of those days are, scrubbing toilets. Do I love scrubbing toilets? No, I don't, but it's a part of my career. So you're absolutely right. Well, figuratively, you'll never work a day in your life. Literally, yeah, keep on dreaming. You're going to be working all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where like we talk about work-life balance.
Hmm.
And even if you're doing a job you love, you still need to have work-life balance.
Absolutely. I've left positions before. I love the positions, love the principles, but without that work-life balance, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how good the job is. Our industry is a difficult industry. It's mentally taxing, and
Mhm.
there are people that tend to go, to the wayside of, drugs and alcoholism. And, there have been a few stories of people taking their own lives because of the pressures of the job.
Mhm.
So, again, just because you love it and just because it's your passion and you enjoy what you do every day does not mean it doesn't take a toll on you and your life. So you
Yeah.
do have to maintain that balance.
Yeah. So we've kind of been talking about estate management a little bit, and wonder, our listeners are going, okay, what the hell is this? Living on beautiful properties but scrubbing toilets. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about estate management and your take on this career?
Absolutely. Well, at its core, I believe that estate management or the private service is ensuring that the minutia of life doesn't pester our principles.
Mm-hmm.
In a broader picture, maybe we say that, and this is a phrase that I cultivated and I really like, is that I believe that it is the act of giving in which one's own ego and preconceptions are set aside for the preferences of the principal. So it is that, we are making sure that our principals, as how we refer to our employers, that our principals have the free time to cultivate their personal relationships, their family relationships, but also cultivate their business.
Mm-hmm.
Indirectly, the more money that they make, the more properties they buy, the more service environments they purchase. So our jobs naturally expand with that.
Right.
But it is service. It is service without being servile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, a bit of perspective, it's not uncommon that you're looking after a 20 to 30,000 square foot residence on 10 acres with an additional, um, townhouse in New York that's another
Mm-hmm.
10,000 square feet. They may have multiple properties in multiple states, maybe a small staff, maybe a large one. But again, that is defined by the principal and how they want to live their life.
Yes. And don't forget the planes, boats, and helicopters as well.
Oh yeah, just a few toys.
It's just a couple of inconsequential toys, you know.
Yeah.
But it is all the service environments. You know, basically what we manage is every environment that a service is going to be delivered to our principals, and that's what we manage, the services at its core.
Okay. So how did you realize the estate management was really the ideal job for you?
Oh, I didn't. In the beginning, when I first got into this business, I didn't know that this industry even existed. I'm like many of the people that I talk to now on a regular basis. You know, I go up to them and say, and I had to change my verbiage because I would walk up to them and say, I'm an estate manager.
Hmm.
You deal with dead people's money?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not that kind of estate. And I had to actually migrate to saying, well, I'm an estate manager and butler.
Hmm.
And 99% of the people I meet say, "Oh my God, you're the first butler I've ever met. This is so cool. This is so interesting. Who do you work for?" And that goes down a whole nother path of discretion, but
Right. Can't tell you. Have to kill you.
exactly. Sorry, non-disclosure agreement, or my canned answer is usually, "Oh, well, it's someone you would never recognize anyway." So,
Hmm.
but it was my ex-wife, actually. She was a chef and a graduate of Johnson and Wales
Hmm.
in Rhode Island. She had always her vision was to be in private service. And we were in Houston when Enron collapsed. I was just out of getting my certifications, my Cisco and Microsoft certifications.
Hmm.
Enron collapsed, flooded the market with all these super high-end computer techies. So I looked at my wife. We both knew that, or we were both aware at that point in time that New York was really the epicenter for private service in the United States.
Uh-huh.
So we said, you know what, we're going to pack up. We're going to move up to New York and see what we can do.
Hmm.
And she was not able to find a job on her own because of lack of experience. She had the education, but she didn't have the experience. So we said, well, let's put her, we were actually talking with a placement agent, and they said, well, let's put your experience together onto one resume and create a domestic couple
Hmm.
out of you. And, you know, anybody in our industry knows that domestic couples are usually in high demand because you tend to get two for one,
Right.
two people for one salary, and it benefits the clients all around. So we took my hotel management background, my technology background, her culinary background, put it all together on one resume. And then we actually went to work in that country in for 2 years as a live-in position to
Hmm.
prove that we could live, work together 24 hours a day.
Right. Because it's
And
entirely different of yeah, exactly like you said, 24/7 with the person you're married to and working with. Not everybody can pull that off. No.
I didn't pull it off the first time around. You know, my ex-wife and I, we went through several positions, and one reason or another, the position didn't work out. Eventually it took its toll on our marriage, and in 2010 we got a divorce.
Mhm.
But that's not saying that it doesn't work, because my wife now, who is also a chef, um, she came to work with me as a part of my company. And one thing I can tell you is I don't like going a day without being around her. So
Oh, how
almost,
sweet.
I know. There's a little bit of codependency there, but it is. Uh, so, but back to the original question is that, I kind of fell into this industry,
Mhm.
and I don't think that I really, at first, I followed the industry because I thought it was the best option for me and all that I could do. And I really don't think I realized it was a true passion until about 10 years after being in the industry.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, things just light bulbs started going off left and right. And that's when I discovered, no, this is really a passion. This is this is an amazing industry that we get to do some amazing things in. And someone like myself who is, well traveled, I barely got out of high school. I tested out, got my GED. I never went to college. I could never focus on it. So I did go to trade schools for computers and the such, but so this industry, originally I kind of saw it as an industry where I could sacrifice of myself and of my personal time and my personal life in order to generate an income, and a very good income that, most people with long-term degrees won't necessarily see until later on in their careers.
Right, right, right. So one of the things that I think is very important for demanding careers like this is getting some good support from your family and friends. So how was your support system through all of this, demanding career that you have?
In the early days, it's very solitary because none of our families really knew what we were doing. It's definitely one of those industries that the people on the outside don't really know what's involved with doing what we do. And until they get into a home and they start doing it, do their eyes become open. And that's when you do see professionals that are falling, they decide, well, this isn't for me. It's not what I thought it was. So it can be difficult on friends and family. I've lost a lot of friends along the way, and that comes, dating after after the divorce was difficult because I would have to tell them, look, we may be out to dinner, but if I get a phone call, I've got to pay the bill and leave. I'm sorry to do this, but this is the life I've chosen. And it's the same thing for friends. To this day, my brother kind of just looks at me, smiles and nods, thinking I'm a little bit off my kilter. My mom still struggles to understand the sacrifices we make. Ever so often she's like, well, Peter, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yes. This is what I love, Mom. You taught me to follow my passion, and that's what I'm doing. So leave me alone. Okay.
Yeah.
So, very supportive, but they really don't they are outwardly supportive, but I'm sure on the inside they're going, what is he thinking about being a servant, basically?
Right. And then, my dad to this day still doesn't understand what I was doing in broadcasting anyways. But, after a time you find out, oh, your parents had some kind of weird dreams for you in the first place. Like, I only found this out in the last year that, now I was pretty successful in broadcasting. I was in the business office and I was a morning show producer for the heavy metal station here in town. And then I was in the HR department at the PBS station. Yes, Channel 6 TV. Land of Elmo, from Metallica to Elmo.
I was just going to say that that was quite a change of scenery there, Donna.
Yeah. But my dad was all like, if your life had gone different, if you had went to college right away after high school, you would have gone to CU Boulder and you would have been a Shakespearean actor. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
Like, oh
I didn't realize that was the vision that you had for me, Dad.
I know, right? I just couldn't believe that. I'm like, okay, DJs get paid better than Shakespearean actors. But yeah, he doesn't believe that. So it's like, all right.
That's great.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your early career. As you mentioned, you had some of those first jobs that, were not the right jobs for you immediately.
Yeah, and I think that is the beginning of every private service professional's career.
Most careers, actually.
Okay, because it is tough. In a lot of other careers, so say you become an accountant, well, you're doing accounting, period. You're going into an office. So, if you don't like company A, you move on to company B, company C, company D, until you find the right fit as far as company culture goes. But in our industry, we don't have a company culture. We have we have a home, and the home is filled with person and personalities and the energy and the energy of that family. So you could be the best, the analogy I always like to use is the chef analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You could be the best chef in the world. You can have every award, every accolade, every Michelin star out there. But if Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't like Italian food, and that's what your specialty is, then doesn't matter how good you are, you're
Mm-hmm.
out the door. Your resume is immediately thrown out, even if you walk through the doors. So it does take a professional in our industry is several tries, and that's what makes our industry very difficult. Is they look for longevity, we look for skill sets, but in the beginning, it can be difficult to identify what home it is that you want to work in. You have this idea of what you think, but then you get in there and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, no, oh my God, this person is crazy. They need to be medicated. Why are they? And there's no HR laws to protect us. So, there's a lot of these idiosyncrasies that go into it. And I ended up having to find my voice in saying, and a few tidbits of understanding, some of the lessons I've learned was, one, in the interview, inevitably, from smaller families, so the high net worth, not necessarily the ultra high net worth, that has a layer of staff before you even get to the principal. A lot of them say, well, we want you to be a part of the family. And that's you. In the beginning, you kind of buy into that and you're like, this is so wonderful. I'm going to be in your home. I'm going to be a part of the family. You're going to pay me to be here. Wow, this is so cool. But the reality is that you're not a part of the family. Plain and simple, because you wouldn't be there if they weren't giving you a paycheck. So, that negates that whole argument there.
Right.
And also where to draw those boundary lines. Your personality, because again, we don't have an office. We don't have walls that dictate this is the manager, this is the owner, this is the boss. So we have to walk a very delicate line between being friendly but not familiar, and friendly but also the consummate professional, and being careful of being dragged into their personal conversations. These are all very difficult avenues to navigate. And in your early career, in any one of these early careers, these aren't things that you're necessarily going to readily understand. And you have to fall flat on your face. But as long as you're learning from them, you're moving in the right direction.
Right. So was there ever a time that you just thought about abandoning this whole idea and walking away?
Absolutely. Definitely. And anyone who says that they don't, I gotta ask what kind of medication they're on, because I wouldn't mind some of that. It is, and it's simply because we all get burned out. Because this is our passion, because this is something I drive to do, that does mean that the negativity tends to weigh on me a little bit more than it would on a job that I just walk into an office and do.
Right.
If I were to go into and, be a coordinator for maybe an office manager or something to that effect, it's like, okay, I'm going to go in, do my thing, go home. Forgot something, don't care. Here, our failures are very personal, and because we put our hearts into it, and it can be very taxing. So most recently in November, my wife and I finished a long-term client contract, and it took me probably about 2 months to really, pull myself off the couch and admit that I do want to continue with this. In the very beginning of that process, my wife was looking at me going, well, you really love doing the teaching, so you should, open up the business again and get back to the teaching and consulting. And I would wave her off. I don't want to. No, I think I want to do something completely different. I had actually lined up a interview with Marriott Hotels to be a director of residences for a W here in Dallas. And, that was kind of where my focus was until I was able to rest, recuperate and regain that balance. And then I said, honey, you're absolutely right. I don't want to leave this industry. I do love the teaching and the consulting and the helping out my fellow professionals. So honey, again, you're right. I'm going to get my butt off the couch and get this back underway.
Right. But I think it's really important to, if in cases where you're burned out, because it sounds like you were burned out,
very much.
You need to take that step back and you have to rest and recuperate. And, I work with a lot of people in career transitions, and, maybe they're laid off, or for whatever reasons they're in between positions, and they kind of freak out about it. And it's like, no, take a look at this as a moment to reevaluate where you are, rest, recuperate, and make sure you're moving in the best direction for you.
Yes. And then, because listening to your heart's a very difficult thing when your mind is cluttered.
Yeah.
So, that's why you gotta clean out the mind, clean out the cobwebs, regain balance, and then step back and say, you know what? No, this is, if you are following your passion. If you're not following your passion, then that's when it's time to say, okay, maybe I do want to do something else. But not while you're trying to regain perspective.
Yeah. So let's talk a moment about some of the other pivot points or that you've had in your career, or times when you were pushing through really to the next level. So was there like a specific event that really changed your perspective on your career?
Yes, actually. It was, and I remember it well. I had just moved to Texas in 2010. And I had moved to Dallas without a job, without prospects. It was just where my path was calling me to be. And I did a quick Google search. I don't remember exactly what I searched for, but I came across the phone number for Michael Wright. And I gave him a call. And then after a few conversations with Michael, I was, all of a sudden I started realizing, and again, this is 10 years, almost 10 years after coming into this industry, I started seeing this bigger picture and this hole that was in our industry. The same things I struggled with in my early career, the overpriced education that not only took too long, but wasn't necessarily applicable to the jobs out there, it was my conversations with him opened my eyes to additional options, a bigger world of private service professionals. So there, it's like, oh my gosh, there are people that like to do what I do, and holy moly, I could talk to them. This is great. So that kind of, it changed my perspective from being, completely isolated, completely solitary, to all of a sudden realizing that there is this larger pool of professionals out there that are in the same situation I'm in, which was, it was relieving. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And it taught me it opened my eyes to the holes that are in the industry, which helped me start to develop my business as it is today.
All right. So how would you describe your career now? Do you actually still love it?
Probably more than ever. Especially since I've been able to, I've worked for several families in my career span. I've had short-term, long-term projects. You know, uh, I've been able to develop educational processes that will help other professionals. So, all of these things, those struggles in the early career, the people that I've met, they've all come to this culmination of what I get to do today, which is, in my opinion, is even better than what I was doing 10 years ago. I probably also part of that. I know more now, so it's a little bit easier to tackle obstacles in my way. And that's just something that comes with experience. But I absolutely love this industry. It's like no other in the world.
Right. Right. And to that end, you've been focusing on giving back. So you mentioned that you're doing some teaching. Why don't you just tell me a little bit more about the things that you've been teaching?
Absolutely. Well, my main class that I put together years ago is called The Essentials of Household and Estate Management.
Uh-huh.
And it was put together with a couple of things in mind. Is one, right now we have more and more popping up, but back then, even just 10 years ago, our educational options in our industry were few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
Only a handful of classes or schools across the world, really. But at that point, when I was looking, there were only two classroom classes in the United States, and that was Charles McPherson up in Toronto. Well, not in the United States, but North America. Charles McPherson up in Toronto, and then Mary Louise Starkey in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. But they cost $10,000 to $15,000 for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And the Charles McPherson, I really think, has probably, if you can afford it, both monetarily and time wise, then I think it's an excellent option to pursue. Go to Charles McPherson up in Toronto. He's got the best educational program out there that fits those parameters.
Yeah, I agree too. But not everybody can take the time or money to do that.
Exactly. And that was the biggest issue I had. Most principals, they're not going to let their private service, they're not going to let their house manager, estate manager, butler, housekeeper, whomever, leave for 4 weeks for an education. So you either have the time to do it, but then you don't have the money because you don't have a paycheck, or you got the money, but you don't have the time to go.
Right.
So I put together a 2-day course. Day one, we talk about the non-tangibles of working with the high net worth, how to speak to them, how not to speak to them, when to speak to them, how to establish, employee protocols, the whole, basically the full soup to nuts on the non-tangibles of the industry. And then the second day is all of the foundation that you need to write a household operational manual and how to manage these residences. Because the struggle I had was a lot of that, we're not a part of the family. Well, I thought that was fact, but that is a total myth. So if I could help dispel some of these myths, then to me, I'm already benefiting the industry because I'm making private service professionals' lives better.
Right. And how can people find out more about these classes?
The classes, actually, they just have to go to visit our website, High Net Worth Solutions, hnwsolutions.com. Top banner is our services, and our classes are listed under there, as well as our additional services we offer.
Okay, cool. So we're coming up to my favorite part of the show, where we're actually going to talk about tattoos. And Peter, I was shocked to hear about how many tattoos you have, because with this industry, oftentimes people even put it on their resume that they have no tattoos. So the fact that you've got 4 of them, I was really surprised.
Most people are. And and one of the things I say is, I love tattoos. Tattoos to me mark cornerstones of my life. And I just make sure that I can wear shorts and a polo and not have them seen.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, whatever you do, you do you. But I can tell you this much, you're probably not going to get a job as a butler or estate manager if you have a 2-inch hole in your ear.
Yeah.
It's just, that's just part of it. We represent the principles we work for by our outward appearances. But yes, I have tattoos. I have the Colt emblem is on my right shoulder. I have the Colt. It is the Colt rearing up, and it is modeled after the topper on the Colt Armory in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And that all comes from, it's not that I like guns. Well, I do live in Texas, so I do have a few firearms, but it doesn't come from that. My middle name is actually Colt. Yeah. And my great-great-great-great-grandfather is Colonel Samuel Colt, founder of Colt Armory. So
that makes sense.
That's a little bit of family history there. I had the word nomad on my chest. That's an old nickname from having traveled so much and being very nomadic in my life. And then on my back, my back is covered. I have the Chinese 5 elements with their corresponding virtues, or Chinese 5 virtues with their corresponding elements, and with some stylized cranes that are flying through it. And just so we give proper credit where credit is due, the cranes were drawn by my mom, and they do mark the end of my previous life after my divorce in 2009.
That's cool. That's cool. And of course, you're going to send us some pictures so we can put them on our Instagram and our Pinterest page, right?
I certainly can, but don't judge them. They are a little bit old and somewhat faded, but I am always happy to share. Absolutely.
Don't worry. I've got some awful art on me. So
okay, good. As long as you put those next to them, Donna, I'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll make you look good with some of my busted up old tattoos.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. Again, my guest today has been Peter Van Ryder. Peter, give us your contact information once again.
Absolutely. I can always be reached. My email address is peter@hnwsolutions.com. My number is 214-808-1301. And if I don't answer, leave me a voicemail. I will call you back, I promise. And of course, our website is highnetworthsolutions.com, hnwsolutions.com.
All right, great. And of course, as my producer always reminds me, if you like this show, heard something you like, give us a like, share us on your social media platforms, give us a comment. Don't say anything mean, be decent, people. And we shall catch all of y'all next time.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Donna.
All right. Thanks, Peter.